Man, I'm having so much fun. This is a $1.6 trillion industry. I'm talking about the food and beverage space. If you're not having fun, you're in the wrong place. Yes, it's hard work, but my gosh, the companies, the brands, the flavors, the experiences, the missions, it's fantastic. But some of the brands are different, better, and special. They're the ones who are able to really compete and vie for customer loyalty. Look, I know you want to make your brand different, better, and special. I know you yourself want to be different, better, and special. That's my mission. That's why you're here. Join me on this journey as I interview CEOs and founders from all the different companies within the food and beverage industry so we can discover what they're doing, so we can take that information back, digest it, and become better ourselves, and to help our companies take on different strategies, pick the right technology, pick the right partners, and of course, you got to have great tasting food. You got to have great tasting beverages. Packaged goods. If it doesn't taste good, you're lost. I'm sorry. You're going to lose millions. If you're new here, take the 5-episode challenge. Go back, pick out some brands, some CEOs, some topics. If you love the content, subscribe. You're going to find it on every podcast platform once or twice a week. But I also publish them on LinkedIn, because that's where we kind of hang out. So when you see it on LinkedIn, stop by, make a comment, share it back into your food and beverage network. I would appreciate it. The brands would appreciate it. To all my loyal listeners, thank you so much. You guys are awesome. Thank you for being with me on this journey. Thanks for coming along on this mission for the past 2 years. If you are considering a strategic job change, message me. Let's have a confidential conversation. If your brand is growing and you need to attract experts, you also need to contact me because I have created a different, better, and special recruiting system. I promise you, no other search firm in America is doing that. Who am I? I'm Tony Moore. I'm an expert food and beverage headhunter, semi-professional podcaster, and I'm here each and every week. Stay tuned for this week's episode. Welcome to Winning to Work, everybody. I'm Tony Moore. So in my course of researching and talking with so many different companies and brands, more and more I uncover really interesting companies that have zero retail storefront. And I'm really fascinated how people spin businesses up, particularly in the food and beverage space. And I've got the perfect folks here to talk to today. Nathan Hyde, he's the COO from Honeyville. He's connected us with one of his customers, Philip Cox, the president of Legacy Food Storage. And we're going to kind of get into, what that partnership is like. Phil is a serial entrepreneur. He's got multiple businesses. They all kind of run without this retail storefront. But we're going to focus on really one of them today, and that's Legacy Food Storage. You might have heard of that for those of you who like to buy preparedness foods. Nathan and Phil, welcome in, guys.
Thank you.
Thanks, Tony.
So, Nathan, I know you thought you were just the matchmaker bringing this together, but I got news for you, buddy. You're on the podcast. You're on the hot seat now. Just give us an overview of Honeyville, because I know you guys have gone through a bit of a pivot. Back when I really discovered you guys, I was actually buying some preparedness food from you guys, and now you've kind of switched and gone to a kind of a B2B model. So just give everyone a little overview of Honeyville at this point.
Yeah, I think Honeyville's been around 70 years now. We're focused on 4 major business units. First, the one we work with Phil on is called our mixed CoPack business, where we're a CoPack manufacturer or the operations arm for many companies. We work with companies such as Kellogg's. We work with Trader Joe's, Costco, all the big name brands and the cereal companies. We work with them. We also work with companies such as Phil and the Legacy Food Products. And so that area of our business focuses mostly in cup, single-serve cup manufacturing, bag in the box, much as you'll see as with a cereal box, and then also stand-up pouch. And so those are kind of our 3 major pack styles. We also do some stuff in in number 10 cans and 401 cans or hot chocolate tins. So that's one area of our business. And the second largest area of our business is our commodities or processed area where we as a company, we are the number one white corn distributor in Southern California. So if you ever have a chance to have a tortilla or a tamale in Southern California, chances are that Honeyville's involved in that. And so we'll bring hundreds of millions of pounds of corn into Southern California, and we will clean, pack it, or distribute it into the area. So we also have our own mill in Honeyville, Utah. That's where the namesake came from. Where we also work with all the major cereal manufacturers, where we're taking products off the farm, cleaning, packing them, and distributing them as well. Third area of our business is resale. We do some resale distribution. We also do have a web page that we market some of our specific brands onto. But mostly our retail is done through our distribution centers in Southern California, Arizona, and the Utah market. And then the fourth is an emerging brand that we're working on. It's called Tempsure, or it's a heat treatment process. And so it's utilized for companies that are looking for a kill step done in the original package. And we run it through a kill step 5-log reduction process and sell that out as I said, in the original package to make sure that the ingredients are ready to eat. So that's Honeyville in a nutshell. We have about 450 employees. Like I said, we've been around 70 years and we continue growing. We have goals to double the business in the next decade. And so we're strategizing how to accomplish that, and we continue to build great relationships with people such as Phil and the companies he owns. So.
Yeah, that's really a good segue. So for you to grow, one way is to bring in more of your, more customers for this mixed CoPack. So Phil, you don't seem to have a massive like LinkedIn profile, so you're kind of on the down low here.
That does make more sense for me. Yes. Yes.
I'm trying to do some research, and I'm coming up with a big goose egg.
Oh, well, I finished grad school up, and then I went into more of the private investment side of things. I did a lot of business financing, ended up doing a lot more consulting on small businesses on how to get structured and set up. Then I ended up doing a lot of real estate. When everything from one of the biggest projects I did when I finished up grad school was the Powder Mountain Ski Resort. That's a large project. So I did that. I did the capital side of it, raised them, ran the businesses, helped with the operations and all of that. And then in 2010, the real estate market obviously was still trying to recover, right? And I knew one of the trainers at the gym I went to, and her husband had just lost his job, and I was trying to be nice and social. And so I asked him what he did, and he explained how websites worked. Just to be totally clear, I am technically challenged, so I'm not a technology whiz. I do not have those skill sets, but he does. And so I was asking about websites, and he told me about how they worked and what he'd done in his past position to build websites. And then he explained to me how much that they were selling, like how much you could sell of stuff. And so I was just pelting him with these, just trying to be nice, saying, "Hey, so if somebody had a product like a specialty shower curtain." And he's like, "Oh, it's funny. I helped a company down in Sandy put it together." And he goes, "You're going to die when you find out how much they do every month in sales." And I was like, "How much do they do every month in sales?" And he said, $600,000. I'm like, "Are you joking?" And he said, "No." And I said, "How is that possible?" And he said, "Well, they don't have the big infrastructure that normal retail does." And so I'm used to real estate, right? Building out commercial pads, selling to big box groups, small box groups, all that. I'm like, "You're telling me somebody that actually sells shower curtains? They sell $600,000 a month from their garage?" And he's like, yeah. He goes, I think we just moved him into a fulfillment facility. I'm like, what is a fulfillment facility? And he's like, oh, they do distribution. I'm like, what does that mean? So he explained everything to me in detail, and I got an itch, and I said, I want to do that. And he said, what do you want to do that? And I'm like, I want to do that.
What you mean is you want to buy some shower curtains, right, Phil?
No, I wanted to start a business up. I wanted to find something, and I wanted to sell $600,000 a month online without a lot of people involved and not a lot of bodies. So that's how I started.
Yeah, just out of you being social and nice, you kind of peel the cover back on this, what is now, an e-com segment that most food and beverage brands have. They have some, outside of retail or food service, that's really what they're doing. Right. Now, I thought we might highlight one of your brands here, Legacy Food Storage. Tell us a little bit about that from a consumer standpoint, what it is, why they would buy it. And then I want to kind of peel the onion back a little bit more about your strategies for running a business and maybe what that relationship is with Nathan and how that CoPack relationship works. So start us off with Legacy.
So Legacy Food Storage is a company we started in, I guess, to be totally clear, we started off, I wanted to just understand the industry. So we started off as a reseller for a different food storage company to begin with. I was trying to understand the entire industry, so we started off selling food storage for actually as like almost a distributor partner to a different brand. And then I realized that they weren't doing anything for that, so we just did our own, right? But generally speaking, we've been doing food storage since 2010. We built the company in 2010. We launched in January of 2011. If you're interested in a good timing story, here's the good timing story. We'd been operational about 4 weeks when that big tsunami hit Japan and just crushed Japan. And do you know what that did to food storage sales?
I guess it quadrupled.
Yes, it absolutely. It was going so fast. So it was interesting.
I mean, people needed shelf life. I mean, there was no way, obviously no power.
Yeah. I think what happens with food storage is people go, hey, they don't think about it until COVID hits, right? And there's a massive run on grocery stores and people are like, oh my gosh. And of all the weird things, they go accumulate toilet paper. But when they start becoming familiar with the possibility of food shortages, like if you were to look at the news today with the issues with Ukraine, people are talking about shortages on food, right? So food storage is a concept of preparedness, right? It's a little bit like buying insurance. So you buy food storage in the event there's a supply chain issue, and you can have readily available meals in your house, and you want it to taste good, and you want it to be, it's an assurance that if the local grocery store and stuff isn't going to be able to provide food, that you have some resources available to you to be able to take care of your family and yourself in the event of a problem. So we've been doing that for a while now.
Do you have any statistics as roughly what is the size of that market?
I'm going to guess the whole industry. We've played around with that question a lot. I'm going to guess it's between 250 and 500 million a year in sales.
Between 250 and 500 million.
Mm-hmm.
How many? I mean, are there a lot of big players in this space?
So there used to be. So the downside to food storage is that it cycles, right? So 2008, 2009 hits, economic problems hit, sales go up, right? Tsunami hits, sales go up. COVID hits, sales go up. When things are super, super secure and things are really going well, that industry drops. So most of my competitors died, I don't know, 4 or 5 years ago, and the ones that's brands are still around. It was a distressed acquisition thing,
right? So
there's honestly only been 2 of us that have made it through all the series of issues in the last maybe 11 years. All the big brands when I first started are now gone except for one, and So they've just been acquired.
Well, it's interesting. I don't know if there's a correlation between the fact that you had this online infrastructure and the fact that you are staying the course versus maybe the other brands who were trying to go maybe a more traditional route. I don't know if you have any insight into what their infrastructure was, but does that kind of tie into our conversation today?
Yeah, it was huge. Their infrastructure, we could never figure it out because we thought, well, that's really cool that you're sitting on massive facilities and you've got all of the operations inside, you got all distribution inside, you got all of these call centers. I mean, but when it gets down to it, you're like, they built an infrastructure on an industry that cycles on and off, and they had retail brick and mortar stores, right? So when people bring that up with me, I just think overhead. I'm like, oh my gosh, cost. And so what we try to do is focus on growth rate, but sustainable growth rate that can cycle through all the ups and downs in industry shifts. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Well, I mean, that's in my world of staffing, broadly speaking, that's what staffing does. We flex and move with production. So you go through spikes and you move on and off, and you always keep a baseline, but you can kind of flex up, flex down. And it sounds like you kind of built this out to flex based on
correct
what's happening. And that kind of brings in this relationship with Nathan and how that partnership is working. So I know we're going to dive in a little bit more. You're going to go through some more specifics with us, but maybe talk a little bit too about how you're partnering with Nathan in this CoPack relationship. How does that work? Because I had a bunch of questions coming into this, like, how much investment do you need? And, how do you create the right kind of contract with a co-packer? And how much do you have to make in advance? All these questions came through my mind. And I thought, how do you, which comes first, chicken or the egg? Do you get the customers first? Do you get the product first?
Yeah. So I think I can answer. Let me start with the big picture with Honeyville. So Nate already explained Honeyville when he said they've been around 70 years, right? So imagine you're me and you're trying to make a big splash in the emergency preparedness space, and you're a brand new brand. Nobody's heard of you. You can't go up and say, I've been around since 1983. I haven't been around since 1994. I don't have that. So going to Honeyville and starting manufacturing with Honeyville, I picked up their 70 years of experience. So instead of selling our legacy company is, hey, look at how amazing we are. We got permission from Honeyville to tell everybody how amazing Honeyville is. Because people, imagine day one, they're like, hey, we've never heard of you before. And my response back on our website everywhere was like, of course, we're just, in a way, we're an extension of Honeyville. We sell their products, and they've been selling since 1953. They've been selling food storage since the early 70s. So do you want to work with us, who's got a manufacturer that's huge, that's been doing food storage specifically longer than anybody else? Or do you want to pick up one of these groups that's got their own facility that's been around since, 2006? And we win immediately.
So is that part of the model, do you think, going forward for people to kind of leverage the co-manufacturer's backstory? Or
I would.
So, yeah, and I think, Tony, for some of our customers, that's a very big benefit to them. Others customers don't want anybody to know that we co-pack for them. They want their perception they're trying to put out to the marketplace is that they own their own manufacturing and that they've got it all buttoned up.
So they want to look vertically integrated and blah, blah, blah. And other people don't mind. Like, Phil, you're just savvy in that of, let's market something that's bigger and has a brand already.
And I think that's where Phil has hit his stride in some of this. Is Phil's very good about building partnerships and really being able to bring the team together to say, hey, let's maximize this. Let's make 1 + 1 = 3 rather than 1 + 1 = 2. And so that's the way we've approached it with Legacy. It's been very beneficial. I'll say, as I've told you, Tony, we no longer carry our own emergency preparedness brands because we've really partnered with with Phil and his team on a marketing and a sales channel. They can do it way better than we can. Therefore, we allow that we support them. They support us. It really is there's not really a contractual agreement in place or financial agreement in place, but it's we both know where we play and we both know what margins we need to get to make it to be successful, and it works well for us. So,
I mean, just to give some background, Tony, on a couple things. Think about this. So I built my business story on Honeyville grain. Okay. So people know they can trust Legacy because we've told the Honeyville story. Fair? So I get hit up by manufacturers about 6 times a year to switch over our manufacturing to them. Can you imagine how difficult that would be for me to change up my story after all of these years that we moved our manufacturing and I made all those adjustments? That's not a good plan. So I mean, to my knowledge, maybe Nate can correct me. Our contractual agreement is I pay them for stuff I purchase. I mean, when I place a PO, I pay for it. There's our relationship. I trust them. They trust me. I don't go anywhere else because it would be stupid for me to, those adjustments would be stupid for me. But Honeyville has always been honest with us. So we stay. Like, I'm very familiar with people are going to come in and tell me, hey, we can do this better. That is a given. Everybody's always going to put their best foot forward and say, we can do this better than whoever else. I totally get that. Just because they said it does not make it so. So my personal experience has been, as the business owner side of it, you have to be really, really, really careful who you partner with, who are your suppliers, who's got your back. I mean, if when we get a surge, right? Like when Russia goes into Ukraine, do you know what that week looked like for us? It was crazy.
You just didn't sleep.
Yeah, it was just cells going. You literally, it's like you go from, 30, 40, 50,000 a day in cells to 300,000 a day in cells, right? Like you can't keep up with that. But see, we can call Honeyville up that day and say, this is what we're seeing. And they flip on a machine system for us and they go. It's not, it sounds funny because it's just a co-packer relationship, but it's really not. As crazy as it is, no Honeyville, no Legacy. It doesn't work.
And Tony, I think just to add on to what Phil's saying there, we used to do our own distribution center. When Phil started with us, we were doing our 3PL in-house. We had a distribution center in Ohio, and then we also had one in Southern California. We came together as a team and we said, look, we're not proficient in this. And Phil can attest to this. We were not meeting the expectations of how we wanted to do that. And so what we did is we came together as a team. Phil actually had identified a 3PL in Utah that would be a good fit for Legacy. We went with them. We investigated it. And we actually shut down those 3PL centers because we knew it wasn't our strength and it wasn't what we wanted to be. And we shut those down, and we actually moved some of our internal distribution over to them for any of our e-commerce or website sales. And that's the type of partnership we have. We're honest with each other. If we've got something that's not helping the other team be successful, we sit down and we talk about it. And so, yeah, there's nothing on paper that we're financially linked other than POs and payments. But it's the relationships. And I think today what we're seeing at Honeyville, and I bet Phil would attest to this as well. Today's supply chain and relationships, if those relationships aren't solid today, you're not going to get product. It doesn't matter if you're willing to pay a little bit more or not. Right now, it's the relationships. It's the people that are not the executives of the company that are willing to do favors for you as a vendor because you've treated them with respect in the past. And that's just the reality of it. And so these people that are constantly trying to manipulate and pressure and pound, they're losing in the marketplace right now because they haven't focused on relationships. The world today is about relationships. And that's why Honeyville and Legacy succeed as a team, because we built it on relationships, not on dollars and cents first.
Kind of walk us through logistically. You said you're not an IT guy. I don't mean, well, logistically, maybe part of it, but just walk us through your steps, your ideas, your best practices to launch and start a business.
Yeah. So there's certain businesses. So we've had different companies, right? So I think I mentioned we've owned real estate companies. I've set up financial companies, just all kinds of businesses. For me, what I'm trying to do is I try to keep core competency, core groups within my organization in close, and then I try to outsource everything else through strategic relationships, right? As I mentioned, I'm not tech slow. I'm tech stupid. Okay. So let's just call it a spade a spade. So what that means is for me to understand and keep track of what's going on in the digital space, I have to have somebody who's super smart on the technology side. Okay. So I have brought in those people. I literally went headhunting for those people. So when we wanted to get a digital ad guy because honestly, I have not had good experiences with agencies. A, they're ridiculously expensive. And B, I don't feel like they actually are ever able to communicate our product stories out in the market, right? So I went and cut a deal. That person I told you that I had met at the gym, when I said, hey, let's do this, I said, who's the smartest person in the industry for the advertising stuff? Like, who is that guy? And he said, but you'll never get him. I said, okay, but I at least want to take a shot at it. Who is it? And he's like, oh, his name's Parker. He's actually in Utah, Phil. I was like, well, can we meet him? So I met him. He owned a whole bunch of his own companies. This was not somebody that was doing it for other people at the time. He owned dozens of websites himself. He was financially great himself. I met with him nicely, just kind of walked him the process of what we were thinking about what he would do. In that process, I was asking him, and what I was really fishing for, I was fishing for the points that he struggled in with his business that he wished he didn't have to do. And I systematically, as he was sitting there talking to me about what he did, I went, okay, so this is an individual who literally just wants to play with dials all day and look at analytics and literally study ad structure campaigns. He doesn't want to run the back end of a business. He hates to be in board meetings. He hates to be managing employees. He hates to manage payroll. He hates to manage operations. He hates to manage inventory. He hates all of it. So all I did is I said, hey, Parker, what if I cut you a deal? Everything you hate, we'll do. You hate it, we're great at it. And he was like, are you serious? And I said, sure. If you'll just focus on ad stuff. I don't care if you come into the office. I don't care. Just do the ad side. And he said, done. Then I went to some guys I knew that ran operations, and all they do is operations. Like when I say all they do is operations, like these guys are accounting financial nerds on steroids. They can run a spreadsheet faster than anybody.
So you mean back office, accounting, finance, support?
Yeah. Oh yeah. That's a core area for me. So I put that together. So I just assembled a team. So a big misconception people have, at least from my position, from my standpoint, from where I'm standing, is they go, oh, Phil must understand everything about how this whole system runs backwards and forwards. No, I don't. I mean, I know it well enough to know things, but just like the relationship I have with Honeyville, I have with my inside team. I have got my guys so dialed in, I know they worry about stuff more than I do. That's what I know. I know if a campaign is losing money and it's not performing, I know Parker, who runs that, is more worried about it than I am times 10. I know on the accounting side, with all the new tax adjustments that have been going in across the country for e-commerce, which has been happening. It used to be you could just sell anything online and you weren't dealing with state tax. That's all changing. You have to have people inside that care about that stuff. So internally, I bring everything internal that's necessary. To me, accounting, financial side of it, the branding, the brand information's inside. Everything else is external.
So go through that list again. So what is your infrastructure right now, roughly?
So I have operations. To me, includes all the financial side. So operations and financial, that is internal, meaning we know where everything is at any given time, where every PO is. I know all of that internal. Everything. We know what our margins are. We track sales. We track analytics. All the numbers are done in-house, always. the technology side of what we do, where, when, and how, that's internal. The ad side that a lot of people go to agencies for, we have that internal.
You brought that in with Parker.
We brought that in with Parker. Everything else, I mean, hold on. I do have customer service. I do have that. So I have an operation customer service side. Everything else we outsource. I mean, everything.
How many companies are you kind of running with this model, roughly?
Right now I'm running 2, and then I've got, I've been asked to run a large one. I don't know that I'm going to do it, but I can literally take this same team and I can plug it in anywhere.
Yeah, like, and that's why I was just trying to sort out, because you've made the investment in people.
Yep.
So you're building your infrastructure. So in theory, you could bring in another idea. Correct. And just kind of add it into the mix. And then it just at some point when they get overloaded, you just have to hire another person for that one particular area in your company. All right.
Yeah, but I'll give an example of something that's a little bit. So we don't just own Legacy. We own our supplement company, right? Silver Fern. So on that one, I found the niche was I needed science. Both my master's degrees are in business, not in the science of health and nutrition. I don't have that background. I play in that background. I play like I understand that. I read that. I don't understand that. So I literally outsourced my science on all of my supplement stuff with a crazy smart group out of Chicago. When I met them, I'm like, "You're my science department." And they were like, "What?" I'm like, "Have you ever done this for somebody on an e-commerce basis?" And they were like, "No." I'm like, "Would you be willing to do that?" And they're like, "No." I'm like, "Try thinking about it differently and then give me a different answer with a yes." And they were like, "What?" And I said, "So let's imagine that you do want to do it. How do we make that work?" And they ended up signing on to that. And that's how I ran the science side. So my science, people think our brand on Silver Fern is ridiculously, like, we're talking crazy science-based. Like, people think our brand is 100% science-based. It is. But I haven't owned that until January of this year. I have outsourced that for 8 years.
Hey, Phil, go into a little bit deeper about Silver Fern. That's something on our side of the equation I've always been interested in personally, but talk a little more about it, like the specifics.
Yeah, so Silver Fern was, so I did grow up playing ball. I like sports. I like athletics. As I'm sure you guys are both aware, as you get older, everything starts to fall apart. Is that fair? So what I found out when I started doing some basic research, if I went into a local gym and I looked at everything that was being sold, it was like creatine, branched chain amino acids. It was muscle protein powder. It's like everything to build muscle. But if you walked onto the floor and you asked somebody, "Hey, what are your health challenges?" They all said, "Oh, I've got an autoimmune disease. I've got diarrhea. I've got constipation. I've got health issues." And I'm like, that's funny. You have an entire storefront up there that literally doesn't address what most of the people in the gym have. Slow metabolism, just to be super relevant, right? So when I started doing basic research on that, I found out that everything went back to gut health. Like, everything went to gut health. So while I was building Legacy, I started studying gut health. Why? Because I was just so curious about it. I had never understood it. Totally new for me. No experience there. And I like to learn new things. So as I started to get into it, I thought I had an amazing, huge array of information. And then I was introduced to a microbiologist that was coming to teach at the University of Utah's medical school on the microbiome. And he flipped everything upside down and went, "Nope, this is how gut health actually works." And I was so enthralled with him, I said, "Can we work with you?" And he was laughing. He's like, "I own a science company." Like, literally, it's a science-based research facility for the microbiome. That's what he does, is science. And I said, "Yeah, you want to work with me?" Now, in that case, I didn't give him ownership or a partnership. I just said, "Hey, why don't you do the science side, and I'll cut you in on products you formulate. You offer all the science. You do this side of it, and I'll do this side of it." And he agreed. Once again, no contract. No contract. I didn't have a contract with him. To this day, I don't have a contract with him. Nate, I don't have a contract with you either. And how's that gone?
Great. I think as long as you surround yourself by guys that are trustworthy, you shake hands and you go to work.
Yeah. So I'm still that. I'm not saying, Tony, that everybody's that way, and I understand that. But if I've built my business around in this case, that microbiologist and his research team, they've got me. They may not have me contractually bound, but they've got so much leverage on me, it would be very difficult for me not to keep my word. Does that make sense? But I outsourced for my supplement company, which is growing great. That business has been one of the ones I've been most focused on, and it grows really, really well. But I have literally outsourced the science side of that, the smarts of it, the really heavy smarts of that business, where people, I've been learning too. I've been going through the same process as my customers to learn it, but I don't own the genius behind the product. So it's funny, people think I own the IT part of our product. No, I don't. I own the brand.
All right. So from your vantage point, now that you have proven your model once or twice or even more times than that, you're sitting there thinking, what's next? What's next?
Correct.
What's coming? How can I fit this into my model? Can you walk us through maybe other industries or kind of product ideas that kind of might be good starting points for people who want to do this online?
Yeah. So, so right now when we grow, when we scale, we try to find things that fit in our bucket that we already have as much as possible. Okay. So with the food storage business, to be specific, I want to scale that business, but it's still only, let's face it, it's still a small industry. Does that make sense? So we are acquiring the exclusive distribution rights right now to represent one of the largest container, like the water container businesses. Everybody wants water with food, right? So with food, you need water, right? So we are acquiring that exclusive distribution rights for that, for our industry right now. That's how we're going to scale that industry, as I pick up and scale other areas within that space, because it makes sense. Now, with supplements, with the supplement business, my audience is primarily women. So I can throw anything into my system that works, that fits my audience, which is women. So I could do skincare. I could do any of that off of my current platform. If somebody's starting an e-commerce company from scratch, and somebody asked me my opinions and views on what's going to work and what's not going to work, Me Too products do not work. So
why not?
Right now, what's that?
Why not?
Because what happens is, I'll give an example. Let me give an example of one. So we have all these women, I told you, our audience, right? So there's a product where you can put a little sticker, it's like a little patch, and you can put it on acne, and the next morning it's pretty much going to go away.
My daughter, I've seen those. My daughter, every now and then she'll come down. It's like a little gold star or something.
Yeah. Yeah. And it works great. And there's a new technology version of it right now, because I know the manufacturers of that. And it's got a zinc alloy based. It hasn't come on the market yet, but it'll be coming out soon. And we, through our relationships, we're given the right to that. The problem is the people that are selling those huge quantities on Amazon and other channels online, they're selling them for like $8-9 for a box. They're into the box about $1.25. Okay. By the time you get done with fulfillment and distribution on that, you've lost all your margin. Those companies are making $1 a box at most. So in order for that to happen, in order for that to really work from a financial perspective, you got to be selling like tens of thousands of those boxes every month, right? So as cool as it was to see we could get the new, hottest, neatest zit fighter on the market on a patch, which was kind of cool, the margin and the space to do that in doesn't work. A lot of people are going to China right now and they'll say, hey, I'm going to get t-shirts and sell t-shirts. The problem is the Chinese are just selling directly on Amazon. So unless you've got a cool brand or you've got a new technology of something that makes some sense, you don't want to go fight in that space. Me Too products do not work. If you can't differentiate yourself and create a different story and you can't explain that fairly quick, you shouldn't touch it. The cool thing about e-commerce is there's a million channels and there's so many people coming up with cool stuff every day. And e-commerce allows people to jump into a space with business without spending years and years and years chasing retail.
Now, when you say channel, can you explain that? When you said lots of channels, you referring to
Google, Bing, Yahoo, Facebook, Instagram,
social
TikTok.
Channels.
Yeah, social channels. You can, and Shopify, you can build a website that's super functional, very inexpensive to come out the gate with. There's places like Amazon where you can build up and you can grow, you can scale a business fast. You can really scale it quick. And I'm not, it's not like I'm a smart person. I mean, I'm not a doorknob, but I'm not exactly the brightest person in the world. For me to be able to go out and say, hey, there seems to be a niche in this area, and I should be able to move into that area specifically, even though for example, in the supplement space, I didn't just focus on, I went really specific. I was like, hey, I want to do supplements, which is probably the most competitive space on social media. Just, it is by far the most competitive. It's got the lowest barriers to entry, right? So supplements. Then I kind of shimmied it down to gut health, which is pretty popular right now. It has been since we started. Gut health was really coming on strong then. Then I went, well, what is everybody else missing on gut health? Everybody else was pitching probiotics. I came out on the market and said, probiotics are the most amazing thing. We've got the best. I can explain how. Don't start with them. And everybody went, what? Yeah. If you've got serious gut issues, don't start with probiotics. So we definitely came up with a different angle, a different approach, and a different setup, right? The cool thing though is that for somebody trying to start a business, the barriers to entry to get in and build an e-commerce business is so small from a capital expenditure side of things. It is so minuscule and it's so easy compared to anything else I've ever seen. I don't know why more people don't do it.
Well, that's why I'm hoping people hear this and explore this more. I mean, of course, it depends on what channel and what kind of product you're looking at, but just in general, what kind of investment do you think people need to start something? Or
I've started I started every one of my businesses, all of them $300,000 with small use of money building up and ramping up. And we've cash flowed all the way through that since then. And the cool thing is once you get your cash flow going, guess what? Amazon offers financing. PayPal offers financing. Shopify offers financing. You don't even have to go to banks or investors these days.
Are they competitive rates?
Oh yeah, they're more expensive than banks, but compared to equity, it's not even in the same universe. It's like
right. You're giving up points rather than equity.
Oh yeah, so like when we scale, right now we do really well, so we don't have debt. But when we began, we were all debt. We leveraged our way into everything. So when the market would go aggressive, like take COVID, when COVID hit, man, I borrowed every channel I could possibly get online. I didn't go to my bank. I bank with Wells Fargo. People don't get money from banks. It's stupid. They put too many covenants and requirements on it. It's just not smart. So I went to all my channels, Amazon, PayPal, Shopify. We just leveraged all of those, and I had it all paid off in 90 days because there was an opportunity. We saw COVID was hitting. Food storage was going crazy. So call up Nate, good relationship. Nate, I need a ton of product. Secured financing, brought it in, pre-sold it, sold it. And here's the cool thing. Not to get really granular on it, but I don't know if people understand this, but there are 1 million companies in Asia that are looking to have a dynamic relationship in the U.S. I've got relationships in China. They will float the cost of materials and goods and bring it into the U.S. in exchange for the right to be the distributor of the goods. They don't have to be an equity partner.
Right. They just want to participate in the top line.
Yeah, they just want to be your supplier. It's crazy. The deals you can cut. In my opinion, people make mistakes because they don't cut deals. They think money solves all problems. Oh, I'm going to resolve all my problems by throwing cash at it. That's just stupid. That's not smart. So you can negotiate. Nate, we have good terms with you. We've always had good terms with Nate. We pay our terms, but we followed those. When I came into packaging with Berlin Packaging, I was trying to figure out how I was going to cover the costs on all my pouches. I was like, oh my gosh, I've got to pay for the pouches because Honeyville's not covering that for me. They're not floating that. So I went and I tried to figure out how to do the pouches. I met with Andrew Berlin at the time that owned Berlin Packaging. He was in town, a very nice man, but also very aggressive, wanting to hit the Utah market hard. And I said, I'll make you a deal. I'll switch over pouches and everything to you. I want 7-month terms. And he was like, no, we do 90-day terms. I'm like, you got to deal with me right now on 7-month terms. I will always pay every single time like clockwork. I'll sign a personal guarantee on that, and I'll move over tomorrow. Do we have a deal? And he agreed.
Yeah, so you just gave yourself the float that you needed.
Yeah, so I mean, at that point, I'm playing Walmart. I'm selling goods before I have to pay for them.
Are there some products or goods, services that, well, not services, are there some products that are more interesting to you at this point? I know you've got your two spaces that you're going to try to leverage, but I'm trying to think ahead for other people that are listening. They're thinking, okay, I want to try this. So maybe you've got some other. Yeah, maybe you're not going to get involved in it, but you still think they're good ideas.
Yeah, I'll give an example. I've got a friend of mine. He's been in banking forever, but he's kind of a nerd on he's an entrepreneurial nerd that's got a banking background, right? So he knows I've got this big footprint in the emergency preparedness space. So he created a hand well pump. Okay, which you're like, why? What is that? Is that a big deal? Well, people that are in a lot of these places outside of big cities, if they're on a well, and if electricity turns off, their well doesn't work. So a hand well pump allows for people in an emergency, like when their lights turn out and the electricity goes off. If you're Texas and a hurricane hits and all the power's off, it allows for somebody to pump water without having electricity. It's just a hand well pump. He created it. He invented it. He made it. He brought it to me and said, I'm going to sell this to you. And I said, that is really cool. We pay him roughly $15,000 to $20,000 a month on a small hand well pump. He sells that many through us. And that's not even his own channels. He's also selling it himself. So it's
just an add-on product for you when people
are
buying.
Yeah. We sell. I mean, we do great on it. We do fantastic. But he does really, really, really well on that. I have a group down in not far from my offices in Salt Lake, and they came in and they said, "Hey, we think we can put together a better emergency kit than somebody else." And I'm like, "What does that mean?" And they explained it to me, and I'm like, "Okay, done. Bring it in." They bring it in. We pay for it. We're floating their cost, for hell's sakes. So I'm floating their cost to pay for the goods. They're assembling it and putting it together down in their facility down in Utah County. And so they didn't go out of pocket with money. I'm the one that paid for everything because I just wanted the product, right? So they bring it in, they package it, I pay for it and send it to our facility and we sell it. So, I mean, there's a million ways. It's just about relationships. It's what Nate was saying earlier. It's like, and I'm not exactly a difficult person to negotiate with. I'm like, if I can make money and somebody else can make money, I'm in. And so if I see an opportunity, and I'm a deal guy, right? So if somebody came in and they said, hey, look, I've got my secret something and it's an amazing something, whatever that something is. I'm going to turn around and go to my digital team and say, research it. You find out what the barriers to entry are, find out who we're competing with, find out what prices we need to be at, find out what the space looks like in social media, none of which, Tony, I do. Just to be clear, I don't even know how to do that stuff. So I tell my guys to do that, and then they come back and say yay or nay. But if it's a yay, we're like, I want to work with people, right? Like, I don't want to create what they create. I just want their story, and I want to sell it.
Yeah, and frankly, a lot of the questions that I had, I'm not asking because I now understand that that's part of your team. Because I wanted to go there too. I kind of wanted to understand, how you break down a market, how you look at, uncovering a niche.
I think the problem with all these people that want to do entrepreneurial stuff is they'll see this software company, right? And this software company raises $100 million, $500 million for a new software system for a new medical whatever software. So doctors have software fast, and they raise this crazy amount of money. They burn cash like nuts for the first 8 to 10 years. It's the Facebook model, right? You build this crazy huge platform. It doesn't start off with any revenue at all. There's no advertising on it. It's just built out as a big a big social platform. They don't even know how they're going to monetize it yet, but people are investing in it. That is one version of how to do a model. But if you're like me and you're not rich and you're like, okay, so where do I start if I have nothing? You have to use relationships. And a lot, what happens is most people spend all their time chasing money. They're always trying to raise money, and which is fine, but what a waste of time. If you cut the right deals with the right relationships, it takes your capital requirements down dramatically. If you put the right relationships in place with the right people, it drops your capital requirements significantly. I didn't have all the money in the world to start paying people out the gate, $10,000, $20,000 a month salaries. I didn't have that. So I started off to begin with. I put everybody, and I'm just like, we're going to all bust our asses for the next 6 months. And after that, then we'll pay ourselves, but don't leave your day job right now. And so that's how we did it, because I didn't want to go raise a ton of money. But guess what? We don't have debt. Our full investment for all of our businesses up front was $300,000.
Yeah, and that's very doable, particularly if you have a couple people that want to go in on an idea with you.
Yeah, it sounds funny, but you can get rich people to throw $100,000 to $200,000 at anything that has a good business plan. As soon as the problem is everybody goes out and they're like, they don't negotiate correctly, they don't put the right structure in place, and so they think they need $2 to $5 million to start a business plan. I never do that. Even on real estate, when I started real estate projects, I had no money. The first thing I did is I went to a group. I'm like, I know where to buy real estate. I know how to buy it. I know what the margin is on it. You get 80%, I get 20%. Deal? And they went, done. My first $700,000. Closed it in a week. That was the deal I cut. It was the first transaction I ever did.
I think that's, I don't get into it that much on the podcast anymore, but I used to have a segment where it was, kind of uncovering someone's superpower. And that's what yours is. You know how to make deals. You're a deal maker. You build those relationships, and you kind of bring the ideas, and these people that you're bringing in, they have the money. They also have the, maybe they don't have the vision, and you're kind of giving that to them, and you're cutting yourself in on that deal. I don't know. It's, you make it sound really easy. I got to be honest.
But hey, Nate, you remember when we first started, I think Johnny was the one that told me, he's like, we understand we're your bank. Do you remember that?
Absolutely.
They were my bank. My supplier was my bank. They helped it and worked out terms, so they were floating my costs. That's why I'm so damn loyal to them. They were like my first. They were covering me millions and millions of dollars. And I'm like, I have the buyers. They're right here, but I don't have millions of dollars. And I remember them going, can you sell it in 90 days or less? And I was like, it's already sold. Yes. My bank was them.
Well, that's why the relationship works so well, is because Phil was just as upfront with us on day one as he is right now, right? So we knew our part of the program, and he knew his part of the program. As long as we both were more concerned about the other partner in the deal, the partnerships will always be successful. It's when you get selfishness coming into a partnership that's what blows it up. It's when somebody says, hey, I'm not going to pay my bill because, I found a bug in one of my products, or somebody saying, hey, you did me wrong here. I'm gonna make you pay for it. That's just a relationship that we try to stay away from. As Phil talked about, you can generally sniff out those types of relationships very quickly. And we have manufacturing agreements with many of our customers. That's the way they choose to do business, and that works as well. With Legacy, we don't feel like we need to have that, because we are both looking out for each other's interests. And we're both capitalists. We're both capitalists, and so, but we're capitalists with a purpose, and we're capitalists with understanding that relationships, as I talked about, can make that equation be 1 + 1 = 3. So,
here's a fascinating thing I've learned, Tony. So my business partners years ago, they were old school, right? They were like, you'd go into negotiation. It was just old school negotiation, right? I'm sure you've heard the concept of keep the kimono closed, right? So I don't know if you've ever heard that.
I've not actually heard that. So
yeah. They would always be like, Phil, you can't negotiate that way. And I'm like, what way? And they're like, you don't have a filter. And I'm like, I'm never going to have a filter. So I would go into these guys and go, listen, here's what I'm thinking. Here's how I'm thinking. Here's how it benefits. And here's how it benefits me. And here's how it benefits you. And I just give them the full A to Z, backwards and forwards. Don't leave anything out. The good, the bad, the ugly, it all gets thrown into the mix. And I just ask. And most people are like, and you can sense it. I know this because I sense it. When people are lying to me, man, I totally feel it. When somebody's giving me a 70% of the story, I feel it. Something just doesn't feel quite, it's not 100%, right?
Yeah.
But you know what happens when you go in to get financing and you're like, here is the entire business model. And you go to the investor and you go, this is why you should want to do this. And this is why it will succeed. But here's the whole story, not part of the story, not a quarter of the story, not a little bit of it, not the business plan, like the full story. People don't leave that. I've got people to do the craziest things in my career because I don't hide anything. There's no filter ever.
The kimono's open.
The kimono is wide open, which drives my partners nuts. They're like, you got to shut up, Phil. And I'm like, why do I give a damn if they know what my margin is? Why do I care? Like, even on my supplement company, you guys are making a killing. No, we're not. Here's my margins. They're like, you just put that out in the world. Yes. Yes, I did. Yes, I'm in business. Yes, I need to make money. And no, I'm not screwing people. Might as well just tell them up front.
I think we could go on for another hour, but we might just have to break this up into another segment.
Okay.
We're going to close the kimono.
Okay, we'll close the kimono.
Yeah, and I didn't expect us to go in this direction, which means it's been a great podcast because when things come unexpectedly, that's what you want. And I'm sure there's going to be questions that I wished I had asked you. And that's why we'll probably have a follow-on. So, Nathan, how do people find Honeywell? What's for business-to-business sales? Is it Honeyville.com?
Yeah, Honeyville, just Honeyville.com.
Okay.
It's like I talked about in the beginning. That's where our namesake comes from. It's our first location in Honeyville, Utah. So Honeyville.com.
Got it. And all right, Phil, so you've got a couple products. Let's just go ahead and get the websites out there for both those products.
LegacyFoodStorage.com, SilverFernBrand.com.
Silver Fern?
Fern Brand, F-E-R-N. Yep.
Silver Fern Brand. Gentlemen, it's been very eye-opening, and you do make it sound just kind of like, you make it sound simple. You really do.
You've heard the concept, keep it simple, right?
Yes. Thank you for not calling me stupid. But yes, I've heard it. KISS. I've heard, but I mean, you seem to do that. You really do. I think everyone.
Because I'm not smart, Tony. I'm not smart.
People who are listening are definitely thinking you're very smart.
So, Tony,
I'm just saying, they think this is a very smart model, what you're doing. Go ahead.
Yeah. Let me sum it up this way. It's simple, but it's genuine. And I think you sum it up as genuine. And so what you get from Phil and what you get from Honeyville is, look, we're not in business to, it's not we win, you lose. It's we win, we win. And so as Phil said it, what's that?
Yeah, we need more of that in the world.
Yeah. And as Phil said, I learned this early on in my life, and I try to teach my kids this every day. But if you don't tell people what you want, they don't know what to give you. And so Phil summed it up in his approach of open kimono. But if you don't let people know what you're coming in to try to accomplish, then they don't know how to help you reach those goals. And that's why Phil's been so successful. Is he comes in with a plan, he knows what he wants to accomplish, and then he shares it with everyone so that they can help him reach those goals, and at the same time he helps them understand what's in it for them. And so that's why these partnerships work, because it's about everyone around us making things better for all of us. So on that, I sure appreciate the time that you've let me listen in. Phil's always entertaining to listen to. And
it's a good thing this is audio only, because believe me, the kimono's been open, folks. Phil, great talking to you, sir.
Thank you.
And looking forward to hearing what's next on the platform. And Nathan, great to talk to you again. Thanks for setting this up for us. And stay tuned for the next round.
Yes, sir.
We'll see what comes next. Thank you guys so much.
Thanks, guys. Appreciate it.